Hey there everyone, it's Jenna. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be making over our kitchen island / dining nook area. And honestly, when we first moved into this space, I was very overwhelmed by this area because I didn't really know how I would get it to the end result that I was wanting, but it did have a lot of potential. You know, it has a lot of natural light. It's right up against the backyard and it has some beautiful views of our desert landscape behind, and it's in the corner of our main living. So it's a great spot to kind of make over because I want people to gather there. I want them to play games and hang out, read a book. I can do work there. I just wanted to make it a really comfortable, relaxed space. And now it is honestly one of my favorite spots in the entire home. So I think you guys are really gonna enjoy this transformation. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so again, this was the space that we were starting with, and because this is a temporary rental for us, I decided to focus on the things that I can change and control, like the light fixtures, versus the things that I unfortunately cannot change, like the blinds. So I knew the moment that I walked into this space that swapping out this light would make such a difference. So I found this stunning woven chandelier that helps to bring in those soothing natural textures, and it also provides some contrast with those black fixtures against the white walls. And I also loved the unique shape of the shade, and this is great because we saved the old chandelier, so when we eventually do move into a house of our own, we can just swap them back and then take this light fixture with us. Okay, so now that we have the light fixture in, I think I want to do something about these floors. And honestly, I was gonna just leave them. That was the original plan because they're not horrible, they're pretty neutral, and this lay is pretty timeless as well. The only thing is, it really bothers me how it clashes with this wood, and it is a little busy, and there are kind of a lot of colors going on. I don't feel like the camera is picking it up, but we have like reds and purples, and it's just kind of crazy, and I want it to be a little bit more simple and neutral. Flooring can really make a big impact in a space, so I think it's gonna be worth it to do something peel and stick over this just to kind of help us get that seamless look that we want. So I'm gonna head to the store and see what our options are. Shout out to Mike on this project. I was kind of going back and forth with doing this floor just because it would be temporary and I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend the time or the money, but he was a big advocate of just going for it and helped me with a lot of it. So when we got home, I made sure to give the floor a really good vacuum and mop so that the tiles would stick well to the floor. Okay, so this is a very awkward transition here with this wood like this and then this like very busy tile. So I figured something that I could do to try to make it look a little bit more seamless would just be to add a skinny border. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this darker charcoal color in strips, and then hopefully that will make this feel a little bit more defined and intentional, and then we can fill in the rest with the checkered pattern. So I'm gonna get to laying that border first, and then hopefully we can knock this out in just a couple of hours. Okay, so now that we have our border all laid, we have a small change of plans. We're actually gonna lay down this paper, and we just got this at Lowe's in the painter section, and it's pretty thick paper. We just wanna lay this down because we really don't wanna deal with cleanup, and it's gonna protect the floors and just be a barrier against the sticky residue. We're gonna get to laying the paper down, and then hopefully we can finish the tile today. Okay, so I'm actually really glad we ended up doing this because this giant roll of paper was only $20, and it's just gonna make the removal process so much easier on us. So we just laid it down in sections and secured it to the floor using painter's tape. And once the paper was down, I started adhering the tiles, but I started to just cut little strips of the backing along the sides with a box cutter instead of peeling off the entire backing because this stuff was really sticky. And again, this will just make it so much easier to remove move when we move out. And at the time of me recording this voiceover, the tiles have been down for several weeks and we've had no problems with them shifting or moving whatsoever. I also had a theory that I won't know the answer to until we peel up the tiles when we move out, but my thinking was that this might even make them reusable if we decide to use these in our next place, somewhere like a home gym or something, because they'll still have all of that adhesive underneath the backing. So I'll definitely make a video updating you guys with the answer to that eventually. But for the corner pieces, I created this template out of our leftover liner paper that was the same size as a tile, and then I would just use this to trace it and cut my tiles. And that worked for some of the simple cuts, but there were some trickier shapes like this one, and I would literally just tape a bunch of random pieces of paper together to create the outline of the tile. And even though it was time consuming, it actually worked really well. Okay, so here is the finished look of the checkered floor, and honestly, I am so happy with how this came out. I will say it did take us a lot longer than we thought. It took 2 full days to get this all laid down. Cutting all the edge pieces was the most time consuming, and that took like a full day. It also was a little bit pricier than we thought, but it does look absolutely stunning, and I think it's going to be a beautiful base. And something that I found was this was obviously a printed marble, so like these are the same and these are the same. Oh wait, no, these are the same. But what I did was I just turned them, so making sure that they weren't in this exact same position, because that would obviously look a little bit fake. So I made sure to turn it so it just looks a little bit more organic and balanced. But my favorite thing of this whole project is how it creates this defined border here. This little strip really makes a huge difference, whereas before we had that super awkward transition with that busy tile and there really wasn't much definition. And this looks a lot more professional and just intentional. So it's going to be a great base to build off of for our other decor. Okay, so next it was time to pick out some furniture for this spot, and I went back and forth on ordering either a round or an oval dining table, but I ended up finding this fluted round dining table online and I really liked it. So I just went with that one, and it actually came in 2 separate boxes. The top came first, and then a couple days later we got the base, and Mike said it was super simple and quick to put together. So once it was all assembled and ready to go, we moved it over into the space, and I love how it looks in here. The black adds a beautiful pop of contrast in this white space, and I love the fluted detail on the base. It gives the piece a nice pop of personality, but it's still subtle enough to not compete with the floors. So because this wall is actually super long and spans the entire living space, we were gonna need lots of curtain hardware. And you all know that my favorite place to get affordable curtain hardware is IKEA. And here we got a couple of the super long curtain rods, and I also love that the hanging brackets here are only $1 each. So I asked Mike to hang the brackets as close to the ceiling as possible, so when you're looking at this wall, your eye won't be drawn to the height of the windows anymore. It will actually be drawn to the curtain rod, which will create the illusion of taller ceilings. So obviously, even the longest rod available at IKEA wouldn't be long enough to stretch this entire wall. So what we did was, at the end of the rod, there's this little piece inside to attach the finials. So we just popped that out, and we were able to connect that rod with the small end of another new rod. So that little hack basically gave us the flexibility to create as long of a wall of curtains as we wanted, which was really nice. And I love how just by hanging the hardware, your eye is already drawn a little bit higher, and that black hardware just helps to break up all of the white a little bit. So we did have one other issue with this corner, and honestly, because the curtain will be covering this spot, I probably could have just gotten away with pushing the 2 rods together and nobody would have noticed anything, but I decided to go to Lowe's and get this little corner plumbing piece, and then I just spray painted it black to match the rest of the hardware, and I popped it on the ends of the curtain rods just to have a more professional look on the corner. Okay, so when it came to picking out curtains for this space, the checkered floor that we have in here is a little bit more on the formal side. So by pairing that with something more lightweight and gauzy, that will really help to tone that down a little bit and make it feel more casual and relaxed. So I found these really beautiful gauzy white curtains. They have that tie top detail that I was looking for, and they have just such a beautiful texture with that kind of light gauzy muslin look to them. So they'll give off that earthy feel that I'm going for, and I figured you cannot go wrong with a bright crisp white. So we're gonna get to hanging these and see how they look. I think they're really gonna tie everything together. Sorry, I had to.
Hello, Ramona. I can't shake the simplest feeling beyond the ghost. We stand on the opposite shore.
Okay, so I love how these casual curtains really help to soften the space. Adding these really made a big difference overall. And now it is time to pick out some dining chairs. And I have some criteria that I like to try to stick to when picking out dining chairs aside from aesthetics. And one is that they're wipeable. I really don't want to be freaking out if we're having pasta or red wine and I have something like a white upholstered dining chair that stains easily. And the other thing that I like to look for is a dining chair that is comfortable. I really want people to lose track of time and hang out and talk and play games, and you just can't really do that if you're in an uncomfortable chair. So I saw these really unique light taupe faux leather dining chairs at HomeGoods, and I actually saw them and I thought about how pretty they were, and then I left the store and I came back another time when Mike was with me and they were still there, and he tried them out and they were super comfortable, and honestly I'd never seen anything like them before, and I liked that they were on wheels and I loved the color of them, so we decided to grab them and take them home. So my first thought was to use these as a little makeshift dining bench, and you can just take the wheels off on the bottom, so it's super easy to convert to this. And I loved how this looked like a little dining booth that you'd see in a cozy restaurant, but like an aesthetic version with that pretty taupe faux leather. So I tried this configuration to see what it would look like, and I brought in some of our woven chairs from our last house, and this was okay, but I definitely feel like this would look way better with an oval table. And it also really bothered me that the light fixture couldn't be centered over the table with this setup. So I decided to recenter the table and just put the chairs around it, but they're still a really pretty versatile piece of furniture that we can possibly use as a little banquette in our next space. And I just love how comfortable these are, and not only are they comfy, but they look so beautiful and high-end, and they're practical. And Mike and I have already played several games in these chairs, and they truly feel like you're just lounging on a sofa. So I'm looking forward to hosting some more game nights in this spot. So next it's time to add a pop of greenery. So I grabbed this vintage vase that I found at an antique shop, and I love the subtle pop of green that helps to give this space more of an earthy feel. And in this space with all new furniture, incorporating antiques just really helps to give this area a more casual lived-in feel. And then to style in it, I went with two of my all-time favorite faux wisteria stems, and I love how twiggy these are, and just two of them can really create an impact. And when I'm styling just a couple of stems, sometimes I'll wrap two of the branches around each other just to help give the styling a more permanent structure. And then when we have guests, I do swap this out for something lower, but it's just the two of us here. I like to have something taller to help anchor the space and create more of a statement. And now that I had a lot of the furniture and styling pieces in place, I noticed that the color of the countertops were really clashing, and the yellow-orange color just did not go with the floors or the furniture. Okay, so I figured that a quick and easy fix for this countertop would just be to wrap it in some marble contact paper. And I actually got this stuff off of Amazon. It was only 12 bucks a roll, and I actually used this in our living room makeover, and I really loved how user-friendly it was. I also really like the color of this, that it's that pretty charcoal gray with some subtle white veining. So I'm just gonna wrap the island only. I'm not gonna mess with the back portion just because the sink's over there, the oven's over there. It would be super time consuming, and I'm just gonna rely on some rustic neutral styling to kind of distract your eye and tone that down back there. But hopefully, because the kitchen island is a little bit more forward and it's the first thing you see, that just wrapping this will really help to create a big difference. So I'm gonna get to wrapping this, and hopefully it turns out good. Okay, so I decided to wrap the countertops sideways instead of long ways because the larger of a section you work with, the harder it is to get it to lie flat and be straight and not get a ton of air bubbles. So I just decided to work in small sections, and I also had trouble with the corners because these countertops had rounded edges, so that made things not so seamless. But I just cut little slits in them and tried to wrap them the best I could. And the good thing is that this stuff is super easy to remove, so if I decide I don't like the look of it, I can just remove it. And also for the air bubbles, I just used these tiny lancettes from the drugstore, and then I went over them with a little scraper, and that got rid of a lot of them. Okay, so now that this is all done, I will say that you can see the seams pretty noticeably on here. I think it's probably because it's at eye level and then along with the lighting in here, whereas over at the fireplace, you could not see the seams very easily at all. But I still do like the look of this, and I think that it really does help to tone the island down a bit. So my plan is just gonna be to pop a couple more air bubbles because there are quite a few, and then I'm gonna bring in the bar stools, style everything, and see how it all looks when everything is all put together. Okay, so I brought the bar stools from our previous home because I love them so much. They're wipeable and super comfortable. I love how the woven detail on them adds some subtle texture to the space, and it also helps to add a touch of warmth and ties in the woven detail of our light fixture. And the black legs also tie in with the curtain hardware and add a nice punch of contrast. Next, I wanted to style the kitchen island, so I used this smaller charcoal line vase that I bought online, but it still gives off that vintagey old world feel. And then I just added some greenery that I found at Hobby Lobby, and I love the rustic wild look of this greenery and how lifelike it looks. So obviously aesthetic decor is great, but I like to pair that with practical pieces that are pretty but also functional. And I love using this marble cake stand to display some of our breakfast protein cookies in an aesthetic way, and I really love how it gives this space a cozy cafe-like feel, and our cookies are right on the countertop when we need to grab them in the morning. Also, you can't go wrong with a pretty stone bowl on a countertop. It's perfect for displaying fruits and vegetables, but right now I actually wanted to use mine for holding napkins. And I just like to give mine a little fan, and this makes things feel really aesthetic, but also super functional. So now that we have the kitchen island all styled and ready to go, I wanted to use some neutral rustic styling on our back countertop to hopefully distract your eye and tone down the feel of the orange granite. So first I brought in my DIY storage books that I made from our last house, and these are great for storing our recipe cards. And I'm also going to make this my little coffee corner with our Keurig, and then using this cute little ceramic canister to store all of my stevia packets. So just a really aesthetic yet functional way to display and store some kitchen essentials. And then over next to our sink, I'm going to use this ceramic crackle tray to hold our dish and hand soap. And when picking out soaps, I like to gravitate towards apothecary-like labels. I just think that helps to give off a more rustic look. And then another thing that I'm going to do to layer in that rustic feel is to bring in a vintage breadboard as a little backdrop for my styling. This just helps to bring in that old world patina to the space and makes things feel a bit more lived in and casual. And when styling a kitchen countertop, using trays is a great way to group items together in an intentional way, because sometimes when you put a lot of smaller decorative items together on a counter, it can look a little cluttered if they don't have something like a tray to help ground them. So here I just used my favorite little faux olive tree to help bring in a pop of that rustic greenery, and then I used some neutral ceramic pieces that are both functional and aesthetic at the same time. And then on the other section of counter, I used another vintage breadboard, and I sourced these from local antique shops back in Charlotte. And then to pair with it, I used this ceramic bowl filled with produce, and I showed you all this in my Hobby Lobby video, but I paired it with this sweet little pear still life to again give off that rustic, homey feel. And another must for me when styling a countertop is a mini lamp. Not only does this help to soften the space and give it a styled feel, but it also gives off so much functional light when I'm cooking at night. And then another aesthetic yet functional piece that I love is this little scalloped spoon rest, and I will link everything that I can from this video down below in the description box. And I also had to bring in my favorite woven salt and pepper shakers for that earthy texture that I love. And this is how the countertop looks all finished and styled, and I think it definitely helps to give off more of a neutral rustic look now. So this was the space that we started with the dated half-working light fixture and the busy, colorful floors. And this is what it looks like after the transformation. I love how we were able to tone down the color palette of this space, but still add interest with the pattern on the floor. And we used a mix of new and old pieces and kept the materials in this room very organic and earthy, with the mixture of leather, marble, woven materials, and just soft, relaxed fabrics. This is such a cozy space now, perfect for enjoying a cup of coffee with the sunrise, playing games with friends, or just relaxing and reading a book. All right, everyone, that about wraps up this makeover video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up because it really does help to support the channel. And make sure that you're subscribed because like I've said before, there's a lot more makeover videos coming and you don't want to miss them. And honestly, this was probably my favorite before and after that I've ever done. And it was kind of a cool experience because like I said, it was the area that I was like least looking forward to making over. And I feel like now it's one of my favorite spots in the whole home. And in our last house, we had a new build, so I didn't really do too much other than style the space. You know, I would do some little minor cosmetic things like swap out a mirror or a light fixture, but dabbling in this flooring thing kind of makes me really excited for our next home, and maybe we'll even take on a little more of a fixer-upper, I don't know, but this was a fun video for me to make, so I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous week, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!